It's time for Broncos Pregame Live with Steve Atwater, Matt Boyer, and Alexis Perry.
Today, the two young gunslingers in the AFC will go head-to-head for the very first time as Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills have made their way to the Mile High City for a Saturday afternoon showdown against Drew Lock and your Denver Broncos. Hello, everyone, and welcome into the Mile High Monument for another edition of Broncos Pregame Live. I'm Alexis Perry, joined as always by the Hall of Famer Steve Atwater and Broncos TV's Matt Boyer. Guys, a windy, cold Saturday afternoon, but I can't believe game day is finally here.
It's football weather, Steve.
Yeah, it is. It is. I know the guys probably appreciate it, especially once they get going.
It is windy out here. It feels like Buffalo circa 2019, you guys, but we have a great show planned for you this afternoon as we get you set for kickoff between Broncos and Bills. We'll give you a look inside the stadium for player warm-ups and, of course, bring you all of your favorite game day traditions that you're used to seeing out here at Empower Field at Mile High. But first things first, we got to take a look at the series matchup between the Broncos and Bills, a history that started way back in 1960 when these two teams met for the very first time. Denver got their second win ever as an organization back in September 1960, but their most recent one here at home came back in 2014. Denver got the dub 24-17 thanks to 3 touchdowns from running back C.J. Anderson. Hopefully, the Broncos backs will put up a similar stat line here today, but who will it be? Matt, I know one of the biggest storylines heading into this game, Phillip Lindsay and Melvin Gordon both listed as questionable. What's their status today?
Both are going to play, Alexis. Both are active. It's to be determined how much we're going to see each guy. Obviously, Gordon with the shoulder injury, Lindsay with the hip. So we'll see how much each guy plays. But the Broncos are going to need him because you think back to the wins that they've had so far this year, the Patriots, the Dolphins against Carolina, even the Chiefs game, which was close. They controlled the pace of play because of the run game.
Right.
And when you've got a secondary like the Broncos do today with only 3 good corners,
Yep.
you're going to need to keep the defense off the field and rested. So the running backs today, very, very important.
Well, Steve, obviously the Broncos offense will need to be firing on all cylinders
Yes.
if they want to keep pace with the Buffalo Bills, who are probably going to be playing with some added motivation here today, given the fact they have the opportunity to clinch the AFC East title for the very first time since 1995. But Steve, I feel like the Broncos have a lot to play for today as well.
Yeah, playoffs, well, maybe not.
Maybe.
We got a slight chance still in the running for it. It's very slight, though. But I think more importantly, these guys are playing for respect. Like my man Ronnie Lott used to say, you got to play for respect when you're going out on the football field.
Right.
They're also playing for jobs. I mean, a lot of these guys were on the roster last year, at this point in the season, earlier in the year.
Yep.
So they got to go out and prove to the coaches that they deserve to be back here next year. And, hey, just for the good vibes going into the offseason, you want to finish on a positive note.
Yes.
So guys got to come out and play hard, and I expect them to do that.
Well, there are so many great storylines surrounding this matchup here today. We're going to delve a little bit deeper into those here in just a little bit. First, you guys know one of our favorite things to do here on Broncos Pregame Live is to bring you those game day traditions that you are used to seeing at Empower Field at Mile High. So we got to kick things off with the Broncos fight song. So here is the Stampede and the Denver Broncos cheerleaders. Sing along, Broncos country. Whether it's tailgating in Lot E or rocking the South Stands, you guys will not believe how much we truly miss seeing all of you out here at Empower Field rocking your game day garb. But you can still show us your style and how you're celebrating game day by tweeting us photos using the hashtag BuffVerseDen. Here are a few of my favorites that we've gotten in so far. You guys look amazing. Good stuff. Getting ready for the holidays, friends. Well, it is week 15 of the NFL season, so you guys know what time it is. It is time for some of these milestone moments from week 15. It is This Week in Broncos History, presented by Empower Retirement. On December 15th, 1984, the AFC West title was on the line as the Broncos took their 12-3 record to Seattle to face the Seahawks, also with a 12-3 record. The Broncos scored first when quarterback John Elway plunged into the end zone, and safety Steve Foley put the game out of reach in the fourth quarter with a 40-yard pick six. The Broncos went on to beat the Seahawks 31-14, giving the Broncos the AFC West crown and their most regular season wins ever with 13. That season, running back Sammy Winder finished with over 1,100 yards rushing, while wide receiver Steve Watson racked up over 1,100 yards receiving. It was the first time the Broncos had 1,000-yard performers in each of those categories during the same season. That happened this week in Broncos history, 1984, and Empower Retirement reminds you to live for today while planning for tomorrow. Now let's send it over to Matt Boyer for more on this week's matchup. Matt?
Thank you, Alexis. Broncos country, time now for a couple of factoids to impress your friends and family at home. The first one we got for you today. Did you know, Broncos country, Drew Lock is coming off his best game as a pro versus Carolina. His passer rating was 149.5, which is the third highest single game mark in Broncos history. Only John Elway and Peyton Manning had better marks. Not bad company there. Next up, Alexander Johnson. For the first time in his career, he topped 100 tackles for the season last week versus Carolina. Again, since 2001, the Broncos' single-season mark. Ooh, you feel those Lake Erie Force winds here out here at the Mile High Monument. Since 2001, the Broncos' single-season mark for tackles is 199. That is from Al Wilson in 2002. Last up, Week 14 for the Broncos was the first missed start for Garrett Bowles in his career due to an illness. Prior to that, he started 60 consecutive games. The Broncos' record for most consecutive games started, however, is 156. That by Billy Thompson back in 1970, from 1971 to 1981. All right, another fact, Broncos country. Justin Simmons, a pretty darn good guy. So good, in fact, he won the Darren Williams Good Guy Award for the second consecutive season. That award given out by the Pro Football Writers Association earlier this week, given to Justin for his availability and his contributions to always being available for media personalities in the Denver market. So congratulations to him, and the awards do not stop there. This week, for the second consecutive year as well, Justin Simmons was named the Broncos nominee for Walter Payton Man of the Year, an incredibly distinguished honor. That award presented by Nationwide. Justin becomes just the fourth Bronco to be nominated for this award multiple times. He is applauded for his leadership and initiative in the community. In June of earlier this year, Simmons announced the establishment of the Justin Simmons Foundation, a nonprofit organization that focuses on youth development, hunger relief, education, and other community-based causes. Justin has stood up and spoken out against social and systemic injustices and is one of the team leaders focused on societal change. As the team spokesperson for Fuel Up to Play 60, Simmons has made personal contribution of $10,000 to Denver Public Schools Food Security Fund, providing free and reduced cost meals to students and their families who have been exceptionally hard hit by the COVID-19 pandemic. Congratulations, Justin. The entire Broncos family extremely proud of your exemplary leadership so far in your Broncos and NFL career. All right, Broncos country, speaking of champions, we want to take you now outside Mile High Monument to a champion in the kitchen. Alexis is standing by with Austin Holland from 505 Southwestern to create a tailgate treat with a Colorado staple, green chili.
Thanks so much, Matt. Here with Austin. She is a brand ambassador for 505 Southwestern. We are so glad that you're here today. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. What are we making today?
So we are going to make some sweet and spicy green chili glazed ribs, which is a great tailgate recipe because you can make it at home the day before and then finish it on the grill right before you're going to eat it. So it's a wonderful thing to do and share with your friends.
Well, obviously the most important ingredient, 505 Southwestern green chili. So for those who might not know, what is in 505?
So our main flagship product here is our flame roasted green chili, and it only has 3 ingredients. It's a very clean product. Flame roasted New Mexico Hatch Valley green chili, lime juice and salt. And you can see the char marks on this chili. It's really a premium product. And we put some of this green chili into all of our salsas and salsas.
Oh, I love it. Okay, so what is our very first step for these ribs?
Our very first step is we're gonna make a glaze for our ribs.
Okay.
And this is pretty simple. We are gonna take 2 jars of our pineapple mango jalapeno salsa.
Yeah.
Pour that in our blender here.
Okay.
And this recipe calls for a spoonful of our flame roasted green chili, so I'm just gonna do a dollop.
Perfect.
You can
Eyeball
never
it.
have too much green chili, in my opinion. Makes everything taste better.
Right.
Get our lid on here. We're gonna blend this until it's a nice glaze.
Okay. Crank it up a little.
Crank it up. There we go. We're scaring Miles. Sorry, Miles. All right. So now that we have our glaze, we're gonna take our ribs.
Smells good.
And we cooked these yesterday, and first you wrap them in foil with some glaze underneath and some glaze on top, seal it up in a foil packet, cook it for 3 to 3.5 hours at 350 degrees. So these are pre-cooked. We're gonna put them on the grill and add some of that glaze to finish them off.
Okay, wonderful. Nice and hot.
Just gonna bring this over. Do a generous amount of that glaze.
That looks amazing.
To finish it off, while those heat up, we are gonna make a slaw with some cabbage, some sliced fennel, some grated apple, some grated carrots. Finish that off with some apple cider vinegar and a little mayonnaise.
How easy is that?
So easy. Toss that together. It's very colorful. A nice contrast to your ribs.
I love it. What are some of the other ways that we can use 505 Southwestern?
So as I mentioned, 505 goes great on everything.
Yeah.
So this green chili is one of my favorite products. I put this on pizza. I put it on hot dogs, hamburgers, eggs in the morning. Make a
Yum.
breakfast burrito.
Yes.
If you're making a pot of chili, I put this in my chili. If you have kids like I do, I love it because you can make a more bland food item and then add this to spice it up on your own plate so that you can spice it depending on your tolerance for heat.
Sounds amazing. Okay, so the ribs were on there for about 10 minutes, then we flipped them. They've been on for about 5. Are they about good to pull off?
Let's see how they look.
Okay, they look amazing.
I'd say they look delicious.
Perfect.
Let's go ahead and plate some of these up. We'll start with a little of our slaw. This meat is falling off the bone. What do you say?
Absolutely perfect. A perfect tailgate recipe. Speaking of recipes, where can we find more of your great recipes?
We have a lot of recipes on our website at 505southwestern.com. And if you use our salsas or sauces in anything you make, please tag us on your social media at #HowDoYou505.
Perfect. We will do that. Thank you so much for your time, Austin. We really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Broncos country, I know it was hard to take your eyes off of that delicious recipe, but if you noticed in the background some nice Ford pickup trucks, and you can win a couple of really nice gifts from Ford. Our great partners at Ford have a contest going on right now for everybody in Broncos country for a $500. How would you like a $500 gift card to the Broncos team store? Well, if you text Ford, F-O-R-D, to 39970, 39970, you have a chance to win that gift card. However, just by texting Ford to 39970, you are automatically entered to get a $500 discount towards a new Ford pickup. So if you've got some last-minute Christmas shopping you want to do, well, you've got $500 towards a nice Ford pickup. A little something with some giddy-up. Speaking of giddy-up, On the outside for the Broncos, Jerry Jeudy has been flashing his speed every single time he's hit the turf. Let's learn a little bit more about number 10.
Well, as of late, we've really started to see Drew Lock and this Broncos offense evolve right before our eyes. And I think that's because Drew Lock and offensive coordinator Pat Shurmur are finally starting to gel. They have made significant strides over their first 10 games together. And according to Coach Shurmur, no one should really be all that shocked that we didn't see the fruits of their labor earlier this season.
Nobody likes to hear this, but it takes a little time. It takes a little time for a system to kick in. It takes a little time for a quarterback to learn those things that he needs to learn so that he can be efficient, explosive, but, effective and, kind of stay away from those mistakes that have hurt us.
The past couple games, just with feeling comfortable in my prep, feeling comfortable with, the practices that we're putting together. It is starting to slow down. I'm starting to see it better. I start to feel better when I go out there. I'm not saying I'm fully there by any means. There's still a lot of work that I need to do, but I'm starting to feel better each week going into it. And after this week of practice going into Saturday, hopefully we can go back out there and, that progress still keeps making strides. Game slowing down, knowing what to expect after just a good week of practice and a good week of prepping for this week.
I think you've seen progress. I think he's seen progress in his play. I think we've seen progress on offense. We're trying to give our guys an opportunity to make big plays. We haven't had many penalties. We're running the ball pretty well. I kind of highlighted the reason why, for the numbers crunchers, the points aren't where they need to be. It's been the turnovers. And as we become a little bit more careful with the ball and keep building on all those other things, then I think we're going to be where we need to be to play consistent winning football. That's just my impression of it. It has nothing to do with me. I think we as coaches have kind of developed our little rhythm that, gives the players the best chance to have success. And we got a lot of young players that are benefiting from this season of a lot of reps that they were forced into without having much practice. And so there's a lot to be learned. And I think we've got a really talented young roster. And I think there's a very, very bright future here.
Well, like you guys just heard Drew Lock say, things are starting to slow down for him a little bit. Obviously coming off a big win against the Panthers. Do you guys feel like that Week 14 performance was legitimate growth from Drew Lock, or was that maybe fool's gold in a sense?
Well, I think it was legitimate. He was making really good decisions with the football. And what quarterbacks need to do with this, what Drew Lock did last week, get the ball to your playmakers as quickly as possible. And sometimes, most of the time, that means throwing the shorter passes, the intermediate passes, to be able to let them catch the ball and make plays with their legs. And he did just that, and I think it's the real thing.
What did you think, Matt?
Yeah, part of being a quarterback in this league is winning the easy ones. And, yeah, they didn't play the Chiefs last week, but it's important that the Broncos get Drew Lock used to winning games. And, I think his decision-making, we really saw growth in his decision-making, even though it might have been a little bit of fool's gold on the opponent part. I think, the fact that he was taking what was available and not throwing the deep bomb. You don't always have to throw the deep bomb. Yeah, the deep bomb looks cool, but you know what else is cool? 149.5 is your passer rating, and you're in the game. That's pretty darn cool.
What else is cool is the Broncos color rush uniforms as well. They look good here today. That is without a doubt. You guys, Drew Lock said that Josh Allen is playing the kind of football that he hopes to play. So what has impressed you about Josh Allen's development this season? How do you guys think he took his game to the next level this year?
Well, when he was coming out in the draft, I didn't think he was going to be as good of a quarterback as he's turned out to be. Right. Now, some of that may be the system that he's in, but he is making really good decisions with the football. That's the thing that impressed me more than anything is how he's taking care of the football. He's got an accurate arm. A lot more accurate than he was a couple of years ago when he came out his rookie year. But again, he's got a rifle. He can throw the deep ball he can throw the ball all the way across the field. And he's just developing really nicely in that system.
I think with Allen, Steve, the thing that I like most is his accuracy. We've seen a huge spike in his accuracy.
Right.
You talked to Chris Brown, Bills insider, earlier this week. He said from the ground up, Allen's reconstructed his throwing motion, and that's why we've seen such a big jump in accuracy. The other reason is because he's been with Brian Daboll now for 2 seasons, the Bills offensive coordinator. That continuity is a huge reason why he's been able to raise his game. Similar to how fans want to see Pat Shurmur and Drew Lock's continuity raise his level. So I think both of those reasons are why we're seeing Allen in the MVP race right now.
Hopefully this time next year we'll see Drew Lock in a similar place as to where Josh Allen is right now. But really, the Bills didn't like all the pieces that were around Josh Allen as of late, so they beefed up their offensive line and they traded for veteran wide receiver Stephon Diggs. You guys, how has Diggs really changed the way that they can run this offense?
Well, they traded a first-round pick for him, Alexis, and Brandon Beane, the Bills GM, said he is our first-round pick. That's the value that we got because over 1,000 yards receiving so far, over 100 catches. This guy has totally transformed the way Josh Allen's able to distribute the ball. Not only does Diggs spread the field for guys like Gabe Davis and Cole Beasley, but you also have the designed runs that the Bills love to run that allow Josh Allen to kind of get to the edges. I think he changes the face of the football game for the Bills.
Well, you guys, Diggs this week, he had a lot of really nice things to say about Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler. He feels like they are going to be a dynamic duo in the NFL. So, Steve, do you feel like last week was a good indication that those two rookies are really starting to find their legs here in the NFL and maybe even learn what their role could be with this team moving forward?
Yeah, I think so. Now, Tim Patrick is leading all receivers in receiving yardage this year so far with 643 yards, but KJ Hamler and Jerry Jeudy combined, they have just over 1,000 yards. I think we've just gotten a glimpse of what these guys can do. Jerry Jeudy, extremely talented. KJ Hamler, a speedy slot receiver who can catch the ball deep, as we saw last week. I think they both have an extremely bright future.
Well, these guys are going to be challenged this week, going up against one of the best corners in the National Football League, Tre'Davious White. You guys, it is hard to make plays with White draped all over you. So what are some of the other ways that the Broncos can attack the Bills' defense if they're trying to avoid White?
Run the football. Pound the rock. That's really the only way that the Broncos can make sure that they stay with this Bills defense, because you mentioned it, Alexis. You throw it 40 times against this Bills secondary, and you're going to have some issues, especially with guys like White and Poyer and Hyde. The Broncos.
Josh Allen too. Josh Norman. He's a great cornerback as well. They got 2 great cornerbacks.
But you look at it. Titans versus the Bills versus the Titans, Chiefs, and Cards. You mentioned it on Broncos weekend, Steve. They ran the rock. Clyde Edwards-Helaire had 160 yards against the Bills, and that's a big reason why the Chiefs were able to knock off this tough Bills team. So pound the rock.
I agree.
Phillip Lindsay and Melvin Gordon got to get it going.
Okay, well, speaking of corners, you guys, we have to mention the Broncos' depth at the corner position. It is going to be tested this week. You have Michael Ojemudia and Devontae Bosby on the outside. We'll see Will Parks in nickel and dime sets. But, you guys, so much communication has to be had there in the secondary. Do you guys think these guys will be able to get on the same page quickly and take away some of those targets from Josh Allen early?
Well, they're going to have to, but I think it's going to be extremely tough for them to have that whole defense down pat, especially with the new guys in there.
Right.
But, you know, with Michael Ojemudia in the game, I think they'll be fine. But if they try to go with Nate Hairston, who I think is a really good player, I like the film on him, I think they're going to have a few communication problems, so they'll have to keep it simple.
Well, we all know that the secondary is tied to the pass rush and vice versa. So is there any chance the Broncos can win this game if the pass rush doesn't get involved?
Zero. You got to get a pass rush against Josh Allen because, Steve, and you just mentioned it, Alexis, the secondary is, at this point, is not strong enough, in my opinion, to just let Josh Allen sit back there and pick you apart. I think last year we saw it in 2019. The Broncos were able to throw some weird looks at Josh Allen and really confuse him. And the Bills only scored 20 points last year.
But the question is, are you sending 5? Are you blitzing with 6? What are you doing? How do
Can you zone blitz? You said you'd love to see some zone
What
coverage.
do you want to see today?
Well, if you're going to blitz, it's got to be zone blitz where we're only sending 4 guys because we got to keep plenty of guys back there Cole Beasley in the slot, he's a problem. And then, of course, with the receiver on the outside, Diggs, with his speed and his route running abilities, we got to keep it safe back there, not give up any easy.
I've got faith in Coach Fangio to draw some weird looks. Defensive genius, I've got faith that he'll be able to figure something out.
Okay, I have some jaw-dropping numbers here for you guys. In Josh Allen's career, he's taken 142 trips to the red zone. He's thrown 35 touchdown passes. He's ran for another 22 touchdowns. Here's the shocker. He has yet to throw an interception in the red zone, you guys, in 41 career games. So how big of an impact do you guys think Kareem Jackson and Justin Simmons can really have in this game, especially in the red zone?
Well, I think they can. The biggest area where they're going to be a help is with the communication aspect of it. They can do their part. They can know their jobs. But if the cornerbacks aren't on the same page and they aren't making the correct adjustments when there's motion, it can be an issue. So they're going to play a big part, especially communication-wise.
Okay, the Broncos, they might have to rely on their kicking game a little bit here today if they want to stay involved. But instead of the usual weapon, Brandon McManus, he is out for this game here today. So they're going to have to rely on Taylor Russolino. What kind of situation is he walking into?
He's the COVID kicker. He's the COVID kicker. Listen, Taylor Russolino has played in the XFL, the CFL, and the Arena League. This man has literally left the country to go play football. So this is the culmination of years of work for him.
Yes.
So congratulations to Taylor Russolino.
Everything's lined up just perfectly.
Exactly. And Vic Fangio mentioned earlier this week, if Russolino kicks as well as he has in practice, they'll be fine. So I got faith. Congratulations, Taylor Russolino. Get a game-winning kick today.
Hopefully the wind doesn't play too much of a factor. It is windy out here, you guys. Well, we are expecting a really fun one here between the Broncos and Bills, but let's see what Brian Edwards and Benjamin Albright are expecting. Here is your KOA update.
All right, thanks, guys. Ben, let's go ahead and talk about this Broncos-Bills matchup. And, of course, I think everybody wants to see what Josh Allen is going to be here in person against the Broncos defense. Why has Josh Allen, in your opinion, taken such a big step forward this year?
Well, he's gotten better at working the intermediate game, and it really has been where his weakness lied most of the time. He always had the big arm, always had the mobility and the size and everything else, but putting touch on his short passes and being able to finesse the intermediate game has really been a boon for him. The fact that he's got bigger targets in that intermediate game, guys like Stephon Diggs, has really helped him out. Before, you look back last year, it's a bunch of pinball receivers. You had a bunch of those little short guys that are quick, Cole Beasley, John Brown, guys like that. Those Isaiah McKenzie, those aren't big wide receivers that are presenting a big-bodied target in the intermediate game. Now he's got a tight end, Dawson Knox, that can do that. He's got Stephon Diggs. I think it's a large part of the growth, in addition to the game just naturally slowing down for him.
Yeah, they're putting up unbelievable numbers on the offensive side of the ball. They're top 10 across the board in so many ways, but they aren't really running the ball very well. And I am personally a little surprised by that because I thought Devin Singletary had a great start to his career last year as a rookie. And then they drafted your guy, Zach Moss. And I just sort of thought, okay, that 1-2 punch of those two running backs who are somewhat similar styles because they're both physical runners, I thought that they would be able to do something with that. But it seems like at times they almost abandon the run because the pass is working so well.
Well, there's that. The problem with the Bills' run game is they don't have any outside threat at all. Zach Moss is your prototypical power back, and Singletary's an inside zone guy. And neither one of those guys can get outside. They don't have the gear to get outside and be like a Phil Lindsay for the Broncos. And so if you take Melvin Gordon and you take maybe a step or two away from Melvin Gordon, that's really what they have there in those guys. They just don't have great long speed. They're not the quickest guys in the world. So it does present a problem. You don't have to defend the outside run as tough. And so I think that's a part of it. They kind of use a read option play with those guys on the inside and Allen getting outside as their outside run threat. But the pass game's been pretty consistent, too. So if you've got the pass game to make up for it, like the Bills or like the Steelers, you can get away with not running the ball.
Good news for the Broncos. Of course, they're the number one defense in the red zone, and the Bills are 18th in the red zone. So maybe an opportunity there. If you can bend, don't break, maybe you'll get them settling for field goals more so than actually scoring touchdowns. Let's get to the Bills defense because everybody usually has a certain idea of what that Bills defense looks like, but they're actually pretty average across the board. The one thing that they do, and it seems like we mention this every single time, every single week, it's like they have an opportunistic defense. They get a lot of takeaways. They have 21 takeaways in the season, which is fourth in the NFL, again, versus the Broncos, who are struggling at getting takeaways. When you see the Bills defense, I think there's a lot of name recognition. and certainly their safeties are very, very impressive to me, but there's not really, based on the numbers, a lot that scares you about this team.
Well, they're a bend-don't-break defense, so some of those numbers are going to be a little skewed. You have to be patient with them, and that's the problem is they feast on teams that are not patient with them. You get too aggressive, and they're going to take it away from you. They're a Tampa 2 team, the cover 2. Mike Backer drops all the way back in between the safeties, and he's 6'5", so it's hard to drop the ball in the bucket over him. You really have to take advantage of them on shallow crossers a lot early. Get those safeties biting down, get those linebackers spread out a little bit, and find the soft spot in those zones to be able to work them. It's a tough defense. The Tampa 2 has always been a tough defense. If you got the right personnel, it makes it that much tougher. They're going to have their work cut out for them in this one. I think it's something that they can do. It's similar to what the Raiders run. Obviously, they're more talented than the Raiders. So you can kind of look at that for a blueprint on how to beat it.
Well, certainly for the Broncos, and this kind of goes without question, you don't want to have to play from behind against this team. They tend to feast off other teams like that. So this entire season, it seems like once they get a little bit of a lead, they know how to work you, and the Broncos are just not quite there where they can score at will, despite what we saw against Carolina.
Well, yeah, you're going to have to be strong in the run game, and that's the thing. So this is a defense that likes to try to get home with 4, but it is susceptible to the run. And so if you can run effectively early, that's going to open everything else up. You got to continue to run Melvin Gordon strong, try to get Phil Lindsay going as well.
All right, looking forward to the game. Now, back to you guys.
Big thanks to Ryan and Benjamin. You guys can catch them every weeknight on Broncos Country Tonight. That's from 7 to 11 on KOA Radio, 850 AM. And we give you a sampling of their show Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday nights on KTVD Channel 20 at 6:30 right here in Denver. We also post their television show to our YouTube channel, so be sure to check them out. Well, as much as I miss seeing Ryan and Ben out here on game day, I actually miss the Denver Broncos cheerleaders even more. I'm sure you guys are missing the energy and rhythm that they bring to game day as well. So here is one of their newest routines presented by our friends from Antoine Duché.
Thank you, Broncos cheer. Now, Broncos country, every single week, if you've been watching us throughout the entire season, we are honoring our hometown heroes right here in Denver. These are people working on the front lines fighting the pandemic, COVID-19. And this week, we honor the entire Children's Hospital Colorado's Physicians Relations team for their work to extend critical COVID-19 communications to the more than 5,000 community-based pediatric providers throughout the Rocky Mountain region. Physician Relations has also kept community providers safe this year by supporting and providing testing, personal protective equipment, and mask decontamination/cleaning, which is critical to protecting the frontline caregivers in our communities. They extended almost 10,000 pieces of donated critical PPE and N95 masks to more than 150 primary care practices, as well as extended the Children's Hospital Colorado N95 mask decontamination cleaning service program to Metro Denver and Metro Colorado Springs. The strong partnership between the primary care providers and Children's Hospital Colorado has been strengthened while navigating the pandemic. In 2020, it has reminded us of this truth. We are better together. Thank you to the Physicians Relations team from Children's Hospital Colorado. Now, we have a lot of heroes in our community, Broncos country, and some of those folks are fighting in our military currently right now. And this week, we want to honor a special member of Broncos country. Following in his footsteps, Corporal Trey Hagler of Denver fulfilled his lifelong dream by joining the Marine Corps in 2017. Corporal Hagler graduated boot camp in San Diego, California, and is currently stationed on the East Coast. He has served on multiple deployments overseas and is trained and functions within field artillery. He is passionate in his service for his country and is proud to be a Marine. The Broncos and USAA thank Corporal Hagler for his service to our nation. Alexis, we are going to toss things back to you.
Well, at each and every Broncos home game, we love to recognize a Broncos legend, a former player or coach who holds a special place in the hearts of Broncos country. Earlier in the show, I mentioned that Steve Watson had an impressive season as wide receiver back in 1984, a year when the Broncos won the AFC West title. And our friends at Grease Monkey know that Steve Watson is a legend. Wide receiver Steve Watson joined the Broncos as an undrafted free agent in 1979 from Temple University. In 1981, Watson had 60 receptions for a career-best 1,244 yards and a league-leading of 13 touchdowns, including a 95-yard reception against the Detroit Lions. That touchdown was the longest in the NFL that season and the third longest in franchise history. His 21-yard receiving average that year remains a Broncos franchise record and helped him earn a spot in the 1981 Pro Bowl. Watson played in 125 games for the Broncos and tallied 36 receiving touchdowns. After retiring in 1987, Watson coached for the Broncos for 8 seasons from 2001 to 2008. Our Steve Atwater checked in with that Steve Watson earlier this week.
Steve Watson, Denver Broncos star wide receiver, 6th on the Broncos all-time receiving leaders list with receiving yards, 6,112 yards. Thanks for joining me on the show today, Steve. Now, when you hear that 6th on the Broncos all-time receiving leader list for receiving yards with 6,112 yards, what does that mean to you?
You know what? Sometimes I just think about the Super Bowls we didn't win. I know you won, and it's that time. As far as individual statistics, yeah, it was my job, and it was fun, and I would never trade it for anything in the world. But you always think about the one that got away.
All right, your first year with the Broncos was 1979. Would you share your journey from Temple University to the NFL with Broncos country? I mean, it's a fascinating story.
Well, my coach at Temple University was a guy named Wayne Harden. He was trying to build the program. Well, my senior year had ended and really didn't get any nibbles from anybody. And I get a phone call, and it's my coach. And he says, "Hey, I'm out here at the East-West Shrine Classic. We need you. Somebody can't come." And it was Jerry Butler, the receiver from Clemson. After the East-West Shrine Classic, I end up, I had one team express any interest in me, and that was the Denver Broncos. I don't want to labor you with this story, but I end up walking on for the most part with the Broncos.
Now, you were a great receiver. What are your thoughts on the Broncos' young receiving core and how they performed this year, kind of given the circumstances with the COVID and all that?
Well, it has a lot to do, I think, with the quarterback being young in a position. And, you know, I be honest with you, Drew Lock's probably right where he needs to be. The young receivers,
yeah,
you know, they're at the mercy of the guy throwing the ball. So, you know, if I was lucky enough to be honest with you, there were times that the defensive backs would tell me he can't throw it this far.
Okay.
And it would be, you know, we'd throw it right over top of them and score, and it would be like, nah.
Yeah.
But we've got a quarterback that can throw it like that, and Drew's kind of the same guy, moving around back there, and he's trying to figure the game out. And the young receivers, they just have to make plays. I mean, that's their job. That ball comes up in the air, it's got to be yours.
What's going on in Steve Watson's world these days? What are you up to nowadays? How can the Broncos country reach you if you want to be reached?
Well, in my world today, I'm doing a little bit of public speaking. just motivational, I guess, and just wrote a book.
Yes.
Where it's the Character Coach's Playbook is what it's called. And we're trying to teach kids or teach coaches, and really it reaches out to coaches, parents, business people, trying to teach them how to coach character.
Yeah, I think that's very important, man. Versus always stressing wins and losses, you got to develop the people, develop the youngsters.
Yeah, because when, as you know, when the going gets tough and you need somebody to step up and make the play, to lead the team, character is really where it starts.
Right. Yep, I agree. Well, Steve, great stuff, man. Thank you so much for joining me. I wish you continued success. And when this thing is over, we'll have to connect and go grab some lunch or something.
Steve, I would love that. Hey, keep your career up. You're doing a great job. Love listening to you.
Well, thank you so much, man. Appreciate you.
We have so many legends in this Broncos community, and this is certainly one of them. Hi, Thunder. How are you doing? The antlers are unreal, if you guys know what I mean. Sharon, I know I saw a picture of Thunder out this week. I think you guys were out at Children's Hospital. What were you guys up to?
We went to 3 children's hospitals this week to honor the healthcare workers, and we just had a blast. Just walked in a parade with everyone else, and it was so much fun. And the kids could be at the windows and wave to them, so it was really fun.
I love that. Thunder is always giving back to the community. Good work, Thunder. Speaking of which, in a couple of weeks, it's going to be the Fan Appreciation game out here at Bauer Field at Mile High. What are some of the ways that fans can get involved, even from home?
Oh, sure. We're so excited. January 3rd, and we're hoping that everyone will remember to register because Thunder is going to help give away some of the prizes. So just get registered before the game. And, wow, exciting. It continues to be exciting for everyone, even though that will be our last home game of the season.
Yes, it will. We will have our final Broncos pregame live show out here at 1 o'clock. Of course, Thunder will be out here helping us give away some really awesome prizes. But first, we have to get through this game today, you guys. We're getting really, really close. Thunder's ready. DBC's ready. The Stampede's ready. Are you guys ready?
All right, Broncos country, time now to see your starting lineups presented by Aero Electronics. Let's first start on offense, and back at left tackle, thank goodness, Garrett Bowles. 60 consecutive games started prior to this one, but Bowles, as you see him there, left tackle, Dalton Reisner, left guard, Lloyd Cushenberry at center, Graham Glasgow at right guard, Elijah Wilkinson will be starting at right tackle. You see Tim Patrick as one of the wide receivers right there. Noah Fant at tight end, Jerry Jeudy, Melvin Gordon, and Philip Lindsay. We mentioned it earlier, but Lindsay and Gordon both questionable coming into this game. We'll see how they split time depending on how both of those backs are impacted by those injuries.
All right, time now to take a look at your defensive starters, also presented by our friends from Aero Electronics. Of course, we got to start with our defensive line here today. Shelby Harris, Deshaun Williams, and Draymond Jones will be holding things down in the trenches. Let's take a look at your linebackers on the outside. Of course, you got Bradley Chubb and Malik Reed. And then in the middle, looks like it's going to be Josie Jewell and Alexander Johnson, per usual. Then let's go ahead and take a look at the Broncos secondary. Devontae Bosby and Michael Ojay-Mudia. Those will be your starters at corner. And then, of course, Kareem Jackson and Justin Simmons holding things down there at the safety position. Matt, who are some of the inactives today? today?
Let's take a look at some of the inactives, Alexis. At quarterback, Jeff Driscoll, Tyree Cleveland also inactive for this one. Mark Barron, the linebacker, struggling to get to the field this year. He unfortunately will be inactive as well. And then Sylvester Williams, DeMar Dotson, and Anthony Chickalo, not mentioned. We mentioned it before, though. Brandon McManus still on the COVID-19 list, so he will not be in today's game.
Okay, you guys, one thing to always remember is that for every touchdown scored here today, King Soopers will donate $1,000 to Denver Broncos charities. You guys know that King Soopers donation to Broncos charities helps us improve the lives in our community through outreach programs, including Food Bank of the Rockies. I could not be more excited for little Broncos and Bills here on this beautiful Saturday afternoon here in the Mile High City. Matt, any final thoughts before we head inside for the matchup?
Pound the rock. Everything is going through the Broncos run game today. Control time of possession. Give that defense a break. Pound the rock.
Okay, Steve, final thoughts?
I agree. Pound the rock on offense, defensively, communication. Make sure that the cornerbacks who are going to be in the game playing, they know exactly what they're doing, especially if someone who's new like Nate Hairston.
Final thought from me, absolutely no turnovers today. We cannot afford them up against this stout Bills defense. But you guys, like you guys know, after this game, we have even more outstanding programming coming up for you guys. Coming up at 5:30 p.m. on KTVD Channel 20 here in Denver. We have the December edition of Broncos Connected. Matt talks to defensive back Will Parks, who just rejoined the team after a quick stop with the Eagles. Steve will talk with his longtime friend and current defensive coordinator Ed Donatel about the personnel changes brought about this season and so much more. So tune in at 5:30 or catch it later on the Broncos YouTube channel. And don't forget that we bring you exclusive Broncos television programming 5 nights a week, every week, with Broncos Beat on Monday, Broncos Country Tonight, Tuesday through Thursday, and Broncos Weekend on Friday. You guys can catch that all at 6:30 on KTVD Channel 20 right here in Denver, or check them out on the Broncos YouTube channel at 7 o'clock Mountain Time every single weeknight.
And we have just one more home game, which means just one more pregame live show that you will not want to miss. It will be our fan appreciation pregame show with special giveaways and prizes to the best fans in the NFL, thanks to Aero Electronics. That happens before our final home game of the year, Broncos Country. Sunday, January 3rd at 1 p.m. We'll be back out here at Mile High Monument to get you ready for game day and give you cool stuff. Who doesn't want free stuff? It's going to be great.
I love free stuff. Well, guys, that is all the time we have out here at the Mile High Monument. But guess what? The show is not quite over. We will leave you with the Parade of Colors, followed by the national anthem sung by local jazz legend Hazel Miller. And be sure to stick around for a special holiday greeting from Miles the Mascot. Happy holidays to each and every one of you. Be safe. Here is to a healthy and normal 2021. We'll see you next year, Broncos Country.
Please welcome tonight's color guards representing branches of the United States military and first responders around the state of Colorado. The United States Army. The Navy, stationed at Buckley. The U.S. Air Force Mile High Honor Guard. The United States Space Force. The United States Coast Guard. The Denver Police Department. And the Colorado Professional Firefighters.
Say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watch were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Uvaloa's pass is
Hey, Miles, what do you think of this fake crowd noise we got going for the games this year? Pretty realistic, huh? Louder, off, on, louder, 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 louder.